All right, welcome. We're here on this rainy day to talk about skincare, which actually rainy days are good for your skin. So that's excellent. So this is specifically skincare for people over the age of 65 because things do shift in terms of skin and how it functions. You know, some of the qualities of skin. With hormonal shifts and with changes in kidney function, all kinds of things can show up in the skin. And so a lot of people notice the big things that I have people talk to me about are things like thinning of the skin, where they get really easily cut and bruised and things like that. Also like, things like dry skin, itchy skin, more like rashy kind of situations. And we talked about last week, we talked about dry eyes as well. That's the other thing, which I think of as being really related to skin, but it's actually, it's slightly different organ, but similar kind of process that's happening there. So today we'll talk about skincare. The thing that a lot of people talk about is wrinkles and things like that. And I just to touch on that, just because that's a lot of times what people are thinking about or wanting to know more about. Really wrinkles, they tend to be hereditary, but then the other piece of them to know is I've had people say, oh, but my mom did not have a single wrinkle. And I say, well, what was your mom's weight? Like what, and the thing is that having a little bit of extra subcutaneous fat actually is the thing, the one thing that will make people not get wrinkles. So very often, people who, are thinner than their mom or other women in their family, they'll notice that they'll have more wrinkles, and that's just kind of part of the deal there. And that's why they do the different sort of injections and all of the things that they do to try to put some fat there. And that fat deposition does change also, again, because of hormones. And the thickness of the skin changes. So we kind of start to see those wrinkles a little bit more. So there are some things we'll talk about that might help with wrinkles, but that's kind of the big take home message, is that there's only so much we can do. And also too, whenever it happens to me so often that I see a woman comes in and is like, I'm so worried about my wrinkles. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you're gorgeous. I just really I feel like there's this really awful thing that has happened, especially to women, which is that, sort of being told that there's something, wrong or not beautiful about the signs of so many smiles throughout their lives, or, the signs of having lived, and, and yeah, it's just so sad because, really it's like if somebody, I feel like that one of the many things that people use that to sell things, that age old sort of formula of make someone feel like they're not good enough, makes them feel like there's something wrong with them. And then all of a sudden you can sell them anything because they're trying to overcome that. I am going to go into a brief story about that just because it's just so wonderful. It was that I just love this story, but I had a friend of mine was telling me the story about when she was 5 or 6-ish, and she went to the beach with her beloved auntie, and her aunt stood up, and she was sitting on the blanket, and she looked up at the back of her aunt's legs, and she was like, your legs are so beautiful. They're just like the ocean. And her aunt was like, what? And she was like, oh, she's like, oh, honey, that's cellulite. And she was like, wow, so beautiful. And then her aunt's like, don't worry, honey, you'll have it someday. And she was just just in that little kid self, she's like, I hope so. And I think that I love that story because it's such an important way of sort of illustrating that if we don't have this story around these things, that actually they have a whole different meaning and a whole different association. That little girl looking at her beloved auntie, it was just the most beautiful thing to behold. And so yeah, that's the way I feel very often, looking at people and being like, wow, it's beautiful, it's beauty. And somehow we've in this culture have gotten this real strange thing about how only 20-year-olds are beautiful. And I think that is ridiculous. So there's that. There's my diatribe for the day. I'm done. Now we'll go talking about skin. So hydration. There's a reason why this is the very top thing on this list, is because that is something that deeply impacts our skin and our skin health. both inside and outside hydration will kind of come back around to humidity. But hydration, water intake, something to know is that as we go on in decades, our kidneys aren't as good at concentrating our urine, which means we let out a little bit too much water every time we urinate. And so that means it's like a lot easier to get dehydrated. Also the level of water in the body actually decreases over time. So like the basal water amount decreases over time, so that people just don't have the reserves. So say, if you have somebody who is like, in their 30s or 40s and they're going out and it's a hot day and they have a lot of reserves, so they can maybe forget to drink water for 4 hours on a hot day. But someone who's getting into 60s, 70s, and then especially 80s, really can't do that, like can't get away with that. And a tricky part about that, we talked about this a little bit last time, is that very often if there's like urinary incontinence or something like that, people end up restricting their water even more. So it can kind of compound the issue, so that they're more likely to not drink water. So the next one is avoiding hot water and keeping showers short. So a lot of times people like love that hot shower and it's so good, right? I'm right there. I'm just like, oh, it's so good. The hotter the better. Like I have an older house and the heat, it can get real hot and it's so good. I love it. But yes, that is not so good for your skin in a few different ways. One is that it really strips the skin of the oils. And the other thing is that it irritates, and actually like, causes some irritation to the skin. So the other thing, about that is really watching with soaps, because soaps actually do remove oils as well. And so there is a, kind of really, you don't want to use a lot of those harsher soaps that really kind of pull the oils out. I mean, I actually am a proponent of no soap, which a lot of people are like, what? Because there's a couple reasons for that. Soap actually can make a more basic environment, which means so acidic and basic, so it makes it more basic, and that promotes yeast overgrowth. And so, because yeast love basic environments, and so for a lot of people, especially if they're getting the itchiness under their breasts or in their groin, really taking out the soap can make a big difference. For people who are like, I can't do that, I can't not do soap, using the body washes that are a little bit more acidic. There's one that I heard has really awful commercials, but it's a good product, is Lume, which is like a more acidic body wash if you really feel like strongly about the soap. And actually the other thing I wanted to show as my little using like a washcloth, like a soft washcloth is nice. This one is called like Norwex. It's like a microfiber one, and it's really good for helping with the exfoliation and everything, but not and you can actually, so you basically use it without having to use any soap. I think you can get the knockoff ones of this too. But you can feel it's like very soft. You don't want anything like a regular washcloth is a little bit too abrasive. Same thing with those little puff things, those little plasticky things. Those are not so good. Loofahs. Once you get to kind of like really 60 and above, like those can actually be a little bit too irritating. So something that's a little bit softer, you still want something that's going to do some of that exfoliating, because then you have less of that sort of like dry, scaly kind of skin. But at the same time, you just don't want anything that's going to be scratching your skin a whole lot, because just it's a little bit more delicate. Can
I ask a question?
Yeah.
How about the soaps that you see that people they make at a lot of the fairs and stuff? The goat's milk soap, is that good, or is it still too basic?
Right, that's a great question. So those goat milk soaps and like the more moisturizing soaps are usually,
yes,
people are okay, like that. Those are because they have like the moisturizing quality to them too. So they're kind of like removing some oils, but they're leaving behind other oils, and so those can be okay. I think that probably, I guess actually what I would say is if you are tending towards dry skin, it is good to try not using soap and see how that goes. But if you're, or if you have like a lot of the yeasty rashes, that would be another reason to try going without soap. But kind of tending towards something like a gentle soap, like a goat's milk soap or a moisturizing soap is a really good.
Right, and what did you call that? Norwick? What was the
this
thing?
Norwex, Norwex. It's actually funny because just today, someone actually brought this to me just to be like, hey, check this out. This is a thing I use. And she was like, yeah, you can try it out. And I was like, how perfect. I'm going to talk about that today. Cause I've used something very similar and it's very nice. It's actually, you can get like a baby washcloth and it's very similar. I think this one just has a little bit more, gentle exfoliation quality because it's got all these little tiny little loops, but they're very, very soft ones. So they're, it's a nice little, I think it's actually very similar to a lot of the microfiber towels that are out there, that you can get. This just happens to be the brand, the Norwex brand that, I think they put a little bit more effort into making sure it's like good for your skin. But yeah, thank you for asking about those sort of more gentle soaps. Like, and some people like Dove Sensitive Skin is another soap that a lot of dermatologists recommend and that people like. I do like a good goat's milk soap a little bit better just because it doesn't have like the sodium lauryl sulfate and that the Dove has. So many of the ones that are commercially made have the sulfates in them because it makes it like foam up nicely and people really like that. And so, but actually that can be quite an irritant for people's skin. So that's like, you know, if you're looking for things, it says SLS free or sodium lauryl sulfate free or sulfate free. All of those things are good signs. And timing of moisturizing actually does make a difference. So if you moisturize within 3 minutes of getting out of the shower, you actually are holding in more of the moisture than if you do it like, you know, farther out. Some people really say too to not like fully dry yourself off before you put on moisturizer. I think that feels weird. So I don't know. Maybe other people have a technique that works better, but I don't know about you all, but it like makes me kind of, it just like makes it like white and it doesn't go in, you know, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong there, but, or it might just be the moisturizers that I'm using. But that's kind of the recommendation that they have out there is that, you know, you moisturize right away and with not fully dry skin. The other thing too is that fragrances, you know, for some people throughout their lives, they're, you know, in their 20s and they're having trouble with fragrances. But for a lot of people, it's a progressive thing where they start to have more issues with it. There is a difference between fragrance free and unscented. So unscented, a lot of times they actually add things to try to like neutralize the scents of the things that are not, that are in the moisturizer itself. So they try to make it so it doesn't have a smell. And a lot of times they're adding fragrances to do that, to like kind of balance out things. But fragrance free is actually just tells you that there's none of the chemicals that can be irritating that are the fragrances. And for quite a lot of people like that, especially in detergents and things like that, those start to become an issue. And the way that I know that it's detergents is often because it tends to sort of affect the high rub areas. So it's kind of like the outside of the legs, the buttocks, the under the breasts again, the armpits, where people will get kind of like itchy and irritated. And sometimes around the waist too as well. So that can be something if that's going on. A good thing to look at is your laundry detergent, and to get like a fragrance free. I like the again, they're like no sulfates or anything. That 7th generation fragrance free. It's called Free and Clear. That's a really excellent one for people who have any kind of issues with detergents. So also protecting the skin. So because of how easy it is to get cuts and nicks and things like that, you know, wearing gloves while gardening, there's also these nice sleeves that they have for gardening that are really, they work well. And I've seen people, especially, I find I really recommend these for people who are either taking oral steroids for like an autoimmune condition or something like that, or if they have a steroid inhaler for asthma. Because they get that real tendency towards the very thin skin, the easy bruising, and the I mean, I've seen people be able to cut themselves just by like rubbing up against something. So that's where those sleeves really come in handy. Of course, reducing UV exposure makes a big difference. So that UV exposure creates like some irritation, some inflammation in the skin, and then kind of has all kinds of effects, including, you know, increased risk of skin cancer, but also really, you know, the big thing is that it sort of disrupts the skin itself, you know, by creating that inflammation there. So the very best way, we've talked about this before, kind of in the sunscreen episode, is like, wearing the wide brimmed hat and the sun coverage clothing, and it's great that there's more and more of that coming out, even just like bathing suits with sleeves and everything. I'm like, that's fantastic, right? Because it's like you can never quite get enough on your shoulders.
I have a question on that. So then we aren't getting our vitamin D. So like it's a double-edged sword, right?
We still are getting our vitamin D, actually, because you can never really like completely cover up. So you're still getting enough UV for the vitamin D. You actually don't need a whole lot of it, but
okay.
So yeah, I mean, really, it's like, even in the minutes that you happen to be like standing, at the car before you put your hat on, you're getting enough for your vitamin D source. So yeah, so it really, like, you still do get enough, from that. And even just like, there's parts of your body that will remain exposed, like your hands and your feet or something like that. And even just that, even having smaller amounts of skin exposed is a good thing. Some people who are like really hardcore about it are like, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes in the sun without any sunscreen, coverage, and then put it on, and, so that you can do that too. But really, in terms of like what the exposure levels required for vitamin D are, you don't need to have a whole lot of it. So the coverage won't really negatively impact you.
And not to digress, but is vitamin D cumulative? So could we like stock up on it?
Yeah, I think nobody really knows the answer to that, actually.
Because I'm having a hard time finding the answer to that question.
I think it's not really something. So vitamin D, I'm going to go on this detour with you because I find it fascinating, is that there's actually this whole new like set of research that's like, whoa, did we actually misassociate a lot of things with vitamin D? So they did this, there was this study where they actually tested people's vitamin D before and after knee surgery, so they could see, how it changed, so we knew like there was like a specific, like, imposed inflammation. And so for so long, they've attributed inflammatory conditions. They say that low vitamin D causes inflammation, right? Or causes increased risk of inflammatory conditions. But this was interesting because it was like having the inflammation lowered the vitamin D. So it actually went the opposite direction. And there's some big questions being raised about that. Dr. Alan Gaby is a guy who's really talking about vitamin D and the research in a deep way that's really pretty fascinating, is that, which is the causal factor, right? And I think it's probably a both and situation, but I think, it's not so much that like low vitamin D causes these issues as much as the inflammation itself lowers the vitamin D. And so, yeah, so there's kind of this, sort of bigger reckoning happening with vitamin D that is an important question to be asking. And because of that, we don't know if you can store up, like if you get more sun in the summer, do you then get through the winter with enough vitamin D? And I think that's probably the heart of the answer is it depends on how much inflammation you have, so if you had a lot of inflammation, you wouldn't get very far. And if you have not too much, you probably would have enough.
So there's a very strong causal relationship between inflammation and vitamin D. So that's,
there's
okay.
I don't know, but the real question that's coming up is which causes which. Does inflammation cause low vitamin D, or does low vitamin D cause inflammation? And it's probably both, both directions to a certain extent. But we know for sure because of the study that inflammation definitely does cause decreased vitamin D. So when they've done these studies and said, hey, wow, we've figured out that everybody with MS has low vitamin D, it's like, well, they might have low vitamin D because they have MS, versus that the low vitamin D was a causal factor in the MS.
Right. So it wasn't the cause, but it was the result.
Yeah, exactly.
Of the inflammation.
Exactly. So kind of a lot of things that we've sort of assumed about vitamin D for a long time into question, and really says, what's the full picture there? I think that I feel like the more sort of at this moment, like there's more questions than there are answers about vitamin D. I still do think it's important to give vitamin D to make sure that people, have sufficient vitamin D, especially if they have certain symptoms that make us think about vitamin D deficiency. And at the same time, there's some questions for sure.
Okay, sorry, I digress, but
Oh, no, that's fun. I like that. You'll have to go for it.
Yeah, a question about would full spectrum light help with vitamin D? Does that have anything to do if you were to sit under full spectrum light, particularly in the winter time?
Yeah, I think it does actually. Yeah. So if it's but it has to be like full spectrum with like UVA, UVB. And so a lot of the full spectrum lights don't necessarily do the UVA, UVB. There are people who like do therapeutic tanning for vitamin D, and that I know that that does increase vitamin D. But I think that like a normal full spectrum light doesn't emit UVA and UVB.
It has to have that component to it to be effective.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm saying that with hesitation because part of me is like, is that true? I don't know if I know that. Like, you know, like I think I know
Right.
that, but I'm not sure if I know that. But yeah, it has to have that component in order to create the vitamin D itself. So
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like in the winter months when you're not getting as much, and if you're just sitting there reading in the morning, does it help you to sit under a full spectrum light that has that component to it to help you?
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
I do know that like if you get out for a walk and it's like the sun is at least there, you know, like you are getting some of that. You know, like at least it's, you know, even though it's not as strong, it's like you're still getting some of that.
Right.
Yeah, but I think the actual, I'll get back to you about that because I just don't know. I'm pretty sure because I think you can't really tan under a full spectrum light. But the reason I'm hesitating is because I'm like, oh, you can grow plants under full spectrum light. So you know, but I think that that's not about UVA or UVB. So anyway, I'll get back to you about that because I don't know for sure. Let me put that on a little list here.
yeah, because with plants, the light is more about the photosynthesis.
Right, exactly. Like that it's
Right. They're not necessarily interested in the vitamin D, I guess.
or so much that but I didn't know if the UVA is what actually creates the photosynthesis or if it's something else about the light. If it's because the question that I was kind of going with was like, do full spectrum lights emit UVA, UVB, and if they and that I was like, oh, maybe they must because of the plants, but then I don't know if it's UVA anyway. So, you know, I actually really love it when I find these places that are like, well, I actually don't have any idea about that, but you know, but it does, you know, there's so many different things like that, you know, thinking about the full spectrum light and how much it affects people, you know, when they're having like seasonal affective disorder, and you know, it's like, you know, then that makes me wonder if it increases vitamin D as well. So I will get back to both of you about that, what the answer was there. It's a good question. Humidity. So humidity is a big one, and definitely this year has been really wild for people and their skin and their noses and their ears and everything else, because our humidity levels have just been going like up and down because of the temperature variations that we've had. And so I do actually recommend, especially if you have forced air or a wood stove, to use a hydrometer, which is like this little thing you can get at a hardware store, and just to make sure that your air is staying within, you know, kind of between 45 and 60% humidity. If it's too dry, you know, you can use a humidifier, like one of those they have those ball ones that you don't have to plug in, and then the regular humidifiers. Some people have like a whole house humidifier that they add to their system, but it can make a big difference in a lot of different ways. So we talked about it a little bit with regards to eye dryness, but also it's very important for your skin as well. And especially if people are noticing like a lot of dryness in their nose, those kind of like crusty business or nosebleeds, those all make me think about that their air is a little too dry for them. So here's a big one, which is healthy fats. So omega-3 and 6 fatty acids are really important for skin health, both because they kind of help the body make more oils that are being released, you know, from the little glands, and those are like the thinner oils that are easier for the glands to kind of like make, and because the function of the glands decreases over time with less hormones present. So that's why, you know, a lot of people notice more of like the drier skin is because their glands just aren't quite as active. Sometimes their hair feels drier as well. So the omega-3 fatty acids actually sort of, feed those, like provide those oils, but then they also help a lot with the skin elasticity. And then they also, just help with like the sort of hydration, the ability of the skin to hold hydration as well. Specifically, gamma linolenic acid is the one that kind of is the most well known for having this effect on the skin. Borage oil is kind of the best, my favorite one for that. And you can there's a lot of topical borage oils you can use, but there's also, you can take borage oil internally. It has been shown to reduce a lot of like the rashy, itchy, irritated. There's some people who talk a lot about it in terms of wrinkles and skin elasticity as well. So, and very specifically, they do tests to find out that it actually increases the transepidermal or decreases, transepidermal water loss. So that's like how much they do like studies about how easily your skin loses water. And we're not talking about sweating when we talk about that, just about how easily it kind of like dehydrates. And so adding borage oil either internally or externally, both directions, it actually decreases that transepidermal water loss. It also reduces inflammation of the skin. So for people with like eczema, psoriasis, those kinds of things, it can be really helpful for that. And a lot of people like evening primrose oil. I tend to like borage oil better. It has the same GLA in it, but and actually more of it than the evening primrose oil. And it also gets to be cold pressed as opposed to being extracted with solvents and everything. And so that's why I like it better. But in general, you don't have to like, go get borage oil, take borage oil or anything like that. You can actually just, get a lot of those omega-3s from eating. We'll actually talk about foods that are good for your skin, but from eating foods that are high in those fats. So that's like, the walnuts, the salmon, all the things we talk about that have the higher omega-3, the flax seeds, omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I wanted to say on omega-3s. The vitamin C, so there is, vitamin C actually does, people who get the darker spots, like those liver spots, the vitamin C actually does decrease melanin production. So you can topically or orally, it does work a little bit better topically for those specific spots. It'll lighten them up a little bit if that's a concern for you. Those spots are not harmful in any way or problematic, but for some people, they just want to have them lighten up a little bit. And vitamin C actually blocks some of that melanin production. So that's how that works. Also, vitamin C is a good one for, in general, for supporting collagen. There's a lot of topical preparations that include vitamin C, and it does support your collagen, and it helps your collagen be stronger in your skin. So it's good for that as well as having some antioxidant properties. There is some issue about vitamin C and how stable it is when you are putting it on topically. And so there's some questions about that. I think that I know Derma E has a special way of like making sure that the vitamin C is stable. Derma E is a brand. And so that's as far as my knowledge goes about that, but there are certain issues about vitamin C topically and the stability of it. So any questions about all those things or anything I missed or that I didn't bring up that you'd have to do for your skin? Take care of it. So
wait, I do have a question.
Go for it.
I dry brush every day, like the whole body. Is that too aggressive at this stage
No.
in my life?
No,
because you said like the loofahs and stuff. Is that too much exfoliation?
I think really when we get into like the loofahs, people are really doing this like scrubby business, like really kind of scrubbing hard. With the dry brushing, you're just doing kind of that light touch, right? You're just kind of like that.
Well, I get a little aggressive only because it's like you're not in the water and it feels good to stimulate. It's so stimulating. And you know me, I live in the land of excess, right? There's nothing moderate. There's no moderation.
Right.
Nope.
Right. If it's good, then more might be better. Yeah. That's
right. So I guess maybe just do a light dry brush.
A pretty light one, and a lot of it comes down to like if you're not noticing any irritation from it, like it's probably just fine. Kind of I wouldn't necessarily go really into like the big, like a hard scrub so much. But like kind of a light sort of a lighter touch might be good.
And my skin's probably, I've been doing it probably for like 30 years.
Right.
It's
So
a whole like,
really used
and
to
I,
it.
and
Yeah.
actually I don't do it so much for the skin. Like I never use lotions as a result of it. So I didn't do it for the skin, but way back when I started it, I do it more for my lymphatic system. That was my focus with that.
Yeah.
But seeing how you were just talking about skin, I'm like, oh, dry brushing. Cause I
Yeah.
mean, it's like having a cup of coffee in the morning.
Well,
to do
right,
that.
it really is. Yeah, I did it for a while. I actually haven't done it in ages, but
Yep.
yeah, it's like, because it is great. I mean, even just in terms of like improving lymphatic flow, it really affects your skin and also the circulation to your skin. And
Mhm.
there is a lot to be said for the fact that dry brushing can really keep your skin healthy. Like, actually, yeah, people I've seen who are like in their late 80s, early 90s with amazing skin. Actually, I'm thinking about one person in particular that she is a avid dry brushing person for like 30, 40 years. And I sort of attribute it to, I mean, I was like, oh, I bet that's a big piece of why her skin
Oh.
is well.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Because it's hard to tell exactly what is what. It's like also she's a person who's eating lots of like healthy fats and things like that as well.
And blueberries.
And blueberries, they make that totally. always blueberries. Yep. The avocado is actually so foods and stuff. The avocados, there's actually the study where they had people eat 1 avocado a day, and it just even in 8 weeks they noticed quite a change in their skin. So really, what it comes down to, and I think the biggest take home from that is that to make sure that there's plenty of fats still happening, specifically the plant fats. So the avocados, nuts and seeds, flax seeds, all of those things that have those good healthy fats in them, as well as the high omega-3 fatty acid food, animal foods as well, like the fish and everything. That's really, really good for skin elasticity and firmness and just the even like the thickness of the skin as well. So pumpkin seeds are really great too, because they have some of those healthy fats, but they also have a whole bunch of zinc, and zinc is actually really important for like the sort of like one of the cross linking things in the collagen, and then also it's really good for like wound healing and things like that, and any kind of, and actually speaking of that, I should touch on collagen, because everybody's into taking their collagen, and I don't know if anyone here would like to share their personal stories, but I'll leave that up to you. But the collagen, I'm not the biggest fan of taking collagen orally. I've just seen it have some negative effects, but I've also seen for a lot of people, it just causes them digestive upset and constipation and things like that. The sort of like the marketing strategy is to say like, oh, you eat collagen and then it goes into your skin, like goes right to your skin and your hair. And it's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. Your body has to like break it down and then reform it into collagen, in your body. And what's actually really important for collagen in your body is making sure you're getting enough vitamin C, enough zinc, enough, proteins, and all different kinds of proteins. And it is true that when you eat the collagen, you are getting all the proteins you need to make collagen. But for a lot of people, it just doesn't really translate that well, so much. So I don't know if anybody else wants to make any comments about collagen.
I have a story. I was taking it orally in powder form. Probably I took it for, I don't know, maybe a year. And then I noticed inside the palm of my hand, I started getting these bumps, and it turned out to be a contracture. It was like a big, they looked like bumpy varicose veins on the palm of my hand. It was said to be a contracture. And then I went for a massage, and she asked me, and she was like, hey, what is this? And I said, I don't know, it's a contracture and stuff like that. And she said, well, keep working on it. She said, that's excess collagen. And I was like, really? And then by some chance, I just didn't take the collagen for like 3 weeks for some reason. I think I was doing a renovation or something.
Mhm.
And the contracture went down by like 30 to, and actually went, it was 30, only about 30% the size. So it went down by like 70%.
Mhm.
And actually it's still there, but just very, very slightly. I can still feel it. So now when I see you go in the grocery store and you see those big end caps full of all the tubs of collagen, and I'm like, huh, I got fooled, but it's like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I know for me, I didn't want to share your story because it's your story, but I appreciate that you were willing to share it, because for me, I think the big take home for me was that a lot of people take collagen because they have arthritis, and those contractures are associated with arthritis. So, for anybody looking at that would be like, oh, okay, I mean, that's your arthritis that's causing those contractures, not necessarily that taking the collagen would be a contributing factor. But ever since that happened for you, I've been aware of it for other people. And I can tell you, I've seen people who had these little contractures in the middle of their hand get better with stopping the collagen. So
yeah, who knows, but it's like, it's great
yeah.
marketing.
Right. I mean, the really cynical part of me is like, oh, hey, somebody found a way to make $1 gazillion on something that used to be a waste product, like that is
right.
That's
I'll just continue to eat the tendon off the bones when I eat bones.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah,
It's like, I'll just keep eating that.
Yep, totally, right, exactly. And actually just eating all the proteins and everything. It's like, yeah, really, really a lot of that is well covered by those things. So I mean, hyaluronic acid is the one thing that I do think it can be quite helpful, actually, because it actually helps you like hold the moisture a little bit more, so topically and also some orally as well. I find that to be actually quite helpful for people, but collagen, I sort of get a little like, I don't know. So flax seeds are really big in terms of having all the omega-3s, but they also have vitamin A and vitamin E, which are both really important for your skin as nutrients that support your skin, but also antioxidants. Eating the ground flax seeds, again, they're making another appearance. They're sort of like the runner up to the blueberries. they make a lot of appearances. But also too, you can actually make a really nice flaxseed facial mask that produces like a noticeable change in your skin. I actually think it works better than a lot of the other other facial masks. And it's really great for people who have like really sensitive skin, who can't do like those, any kind of other type of facial mask, but they want to do something. So you just take a teaspoon of the flax seeds and put it with 3 teaspoons of water, let it sit there for like 10 to 15 minutes. It'll form kind of this like, it's almost like a gel, like almost like a jelly kind of a sort of a thing. And then you just put that on your face. And then you let it, some people say to go until it dries. Other people say do it for like 15 minutes, whatever is comfortable for you, it works just fine. And then you just rinse it with cold water, with warm water. But then some people say like, splash cold water afterwards too. But it has a really nice, like, anti-inflammatory quality. It can actually help with like, places where again, kind of like moisturizing the skin in a way that can sort of minimize wrinkles and things like that. I don't really want to talk about like that, but it's just like, it does do that. And also minimizes inflammation if a person's having like some inflammation. So you could even use it like if you had some eczema on your arm or something, you can also use it for that as well. I do love that flaxseed facial mask. So broccoli is a big one too. So this is another one where you see all this marketing around sulforaphane. There is like, you can buy like these like $100 supplements and they're like, it's amazing and blah, blah, blah. It does all these things and good for your skin, good for, as an antioxidant. But what's really true about sulforaphane is that it's not a very stable compound. And so there's a lot of question about whether or not it's actually even really present in these things. But in these different supplements and everything, and in the topical topical applications as well. So eating broccoli gives you lots of sulforaphane, and it's definitely stable in the broccoli, and you get all the goodness, but you also get all the other nutrients, the vitamin C, you get which helps with collagen. You also get like the fibers, good for your GI tract health, which does impact your skin health as well. Inflammation in the GI tract does tend to contribute to skin issues as well. So yeah, so you can get this $100 supplement from your nice serving of broccoli every day. And it doesn't, you don't have to eat broccoli every single day, and there is sulforaphane in the other brassica vegetables, but less so than the broccoli. So even if you're eating like the other brassicas are like cauliflower and cabbage and Brussels sprouts and forgetting one right now. Cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. Yeah, I guess bok choy too is a brassica. So really you get like a much better effect from the broccoli itself than from those expensive supplements. And I think that just another little slight detour is like to remember that whenever you're reading something online that's a quote unquote article, if it's selling something, it is actually an advertisement. Like just always keep that in mind. Like you're reading an advertisement, and just know that that's what you're reading. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I saw this article, I saw this thing, I read this thing, and because they make these advertisements sound a lot like they're talking about research, and they are, but when you actually look at those primary sources, a lot of times it's like something that's like pretty far off. Like maybe it worked in a test tube, or maybe it like was like some compound did something, but in order to get that, you'd have to like the sulforaphane, it's not really stable or something like that. So they sort of extrapolate, like very, very rarely do they actually have a study where they show that this product did the thing that it's saying that it does. Like that, they haven't done that study. But so they kind of take these little bits and pieces and then make these huge claims based off of them and then sell their supplement. So there's my little piece about how those are advertisements. If you do want more like kind of, not advertisements, if you go to PubMed, you can look up, articles about like sulforaphane, and you'll find articles not only about what it does, but then also about how unstable it is, and how hard it is to make it into an actual product that, can be either applied topically or taken orally. And then blueberries, because blueberries are good for everything. Partly blueberries are good for everything because of just them being so high in those antioxidants, anthocyanins. So free radicals, which are those little things, things that kind of cruise around with this little extra ion and cause like lots of irritation and damage to collagen. It neutralizes those because of its antioxidant properties. And they also contain lots of vitamin C and vitamin E, and also which really help to strengthen the skin, and make those the little cross fibers more effective. So yeah, blueberries. All right, so that's all I have today actually for those things. Oh, there's a link for that Farmer's Defense sleeve, which is that one that protects your arms if you're out either hiking or gardening or any situation where you might get like scratched on your arms. And then the little avocado study, the one, omega-3 and 6 fatty acids for skin health. If you feel like doing a deep dive about that topic, that's a really good. Oregon State is actually the Linus Pauling Institute is a fantastic resource. Again, if you want to get away from reading things that are like basically advertisements and want to get into reading like the real deal about what we do know about these nutrients, Linus Pauling Institute is a fantastic resource. They're really well resourced, and also very they do these really neat descriptions about things as well. And then a little article about the GLA, the borage oil, and the effect on skin. So, and you can get, a lot of people want to get like fancy moisturizers and everything. You can actually just get like a bottle of borage oil and use that as your moisturizer. And that's fantastic. Or you can get I mean, regular old olive oil is fantastic as a moisturizer. And you can also get evening primrose oil, same thing. You can just use that. So, you know, a lot of these moisturizers, they sort of like do a lot put a lot of money into their advertising. So that's half of what you're paying for when you buy the bottle of it. But sometimes these just straight oils actually work better. Even though they're like a little bit annoying to like put on them. There is this technique that they use that actually they like whip it. So there's the whipped argan oil is a really great one. So argan oil has a lot of these healthy fats as well. So they actually kind of take the oil and they make it into a cream just by like kind of like almost how you make whipped cream, you know, like just sort of like whipping it. And then it's just a mechanical sort of a creation of this cream as opposed to adding lots of chemicals that create the cream. So yeah, those are all the things. Any questions?
So argan oil, you can buy this whipped argan oil stuff?
Yep, Josie Moran, I think is the brand, if I remember correctly, and it's whipped argan oil. Yeah. Yeah,
that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, especially where I've seen it be really helpful is for people with psoriasis. It's phenomenal for that, but it's also just a great. Yeah, it works well.
And it's got omegas in it. Is that what you said?
The argan oil does it. I forget the exact like makeup of it, but I know that it has all the oils that are really good for your skin. So it must have like the 3 6s and 3s and 6s. But it is a really good. Argan. I just want to remind myself that if it is Josie Moran. Yeah, it is. Okay, Josie Moran. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that really literally the only ingredient is. Oh yeah, so it's like aloe, argan. Does have some sunflower seed oil, which does have some of the those omega-3s in it. Yeah.
Okay, one other question. Does codfish, is codfish a beneficial oil? I know it's the oily fishes and it's not really an oily fish. So will codfish help with like omegas? Does that really contain any omegas? It does?
Yeah, because it's a cold water fish. So all the cold water fishes do have.
Oh.
Yep. So it totally have. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's good news.
Yep. Right. Because actually it's a major, like even just like cod liver oil is a major, used to be like the main fish oil that was available. And so yeah, that's definitely, one of the main omega-3 sources, but the regular eating cod liver, or sorry, eating codfish, like regular codfish, does give you quite a bit of the omega-3.
Okay. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sardines. There's always sardines.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
I know. Right.
I know someone that just like opens them out of the can and gets a fork and eats them, and it's like,
totally.
I just can't
be that person. Yeah, I'm actually still working on my gumption about it, because I actually had somebody, because I had made a comment in here about not liking sardines, and I had some really kind person bring me some sardines. She's like, I never liked them, but here, this is the good kind. And I that was like 2 months ago, and I'm still like, I'm gonna do this, but I want to do it on a day that like someone else is around who will eat them. Like probably my husband, I think, would eat them. So I'm like, I want to make sure he eats them. My dog.
Do you know any neighbors that have cats?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. But because I'm like, oh, I trust her. I think these might be really good, but I'm also don't want to end up like wasting food, because yeah. So I think not all sardines are created equal is what I'm hearing from people, but
I know, because they have all those tiny little bones and stuff, and they're really good for you. They're really good, but
it's a great source of calcium and of omega-3s and
but it's like, I don't know. And I was recently looking at cod liver oil, because I'm like, I can do this. I'll doctor it up. I'll put it in a shot glass, and I'll add some lemon juice, and I'll add some fermented garlic or whatever, to and I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, totally. Right.
I can't. I don't. And I'm like, hold your nose. Like when you don't want to like taste something, you just hold your nose, right? And I'm like,
it's different, because it's like sticks in your mouth. Yeah. The
Yeah.
one brand that I found that people, can take the cod liver oil and it's like not gross is Nordic Naturals actually has a really good cod liver oil. They actually have been voted #1 for taste, for many, many years actually. But the other trick though is that like you really, even if you get a bottle of it, it goes rancid so easily that you keep it in the refrigerator. But even keeping it in the refrigerator, if you like let it hang around for too long, because I don't know about you, but I always forget to take things that are in the refrigerator.
Yes.
They go bad too.
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, it's not something that you would like have a lot of on a daily basis.
Yeah, totally right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
that's really there are people out there who do it. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'll let you know if I decide to take the plunge, but I don't know.
I hear what I've heard is that it goes well with like well, I guess you tried it with the lemon juice, but with like a citrus, like an orange juice or lemon juice or something like that can cut it. But
Oh, I know.
I'm so glad that
It's
capsules exist. That's what I feel. It's
right. Exactly.
like I don't even have to,
Yeah.
have any experience of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no.
Yeah, no, totally. Yep. Oh, anything else that anybody has?